Thank you very much. Whilst we are reflecting, we are also giving honor to a revolutionary and a freedom fighter and the people's lawyer, Advocate George Bizos. We are giving honor to his life and we are expressing our sympathy with his family. And may we also, the moment of silence that we observed, will also serve as a reflection on his life and times as someone who did a lot for our own liberation and who contributed to the deliberations and the discussions at CODESA, where he also contributed to the issues that we are discussing today in allowing us as women to make sure that there is a minimum requirement in the Women's Charter of 1994 for us as women. In doing so, let me give over to the Honorable Molapo, that is the Speaker of the Limpopo Provincial Legislature, for the welcoming remarks. Honorable Molapo.
Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Lucas, thank you. Chairperson of the Multi-Women Caucus, Honorable Bulangulu, members of the Parliament, acting mayors, chief whips, councillors, Mr. Rocks from Statistics South Africa, Commissioner Bota from the Commission for Gender Equality, Ms. Madubula from the Financial and Fiscal Commission, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I warmly welcome you all to the Limpopo Province. Honorable Chair, it has been well articulated that within the borders of our region, the SADC regional documents clearly affirm the principles of women empowerment and gender equality, and further recognizes the prevention and reduction of gender-based violence as a catalyst for attaining an environment that is conducive for peace and security. It is on the basis that the revised SADC protocol on gender and development identified gender-based violence as an area of concern and proposes several approaches to addressing this pandemic. The revised SADC protocol on gender and development provides for the empowerment of women, elimination of discrimination, and attainment of gender equality through enactment of gender-responsive legislation and implementation of policies, program, and project in line with the provision in the Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2063, to name a few. The women's struggle has gone through many phases and evolutionary processes, and during those phases, women have reasonably been optimistic that the option of these many laws and legislations, adoption of these many laws and legislation will once and for all deal with the scourge of women abuse. Hence, the decision of undertake a nationwide women's charter review processes, which was taken during the Women's Parliament held in August 2019 to cover all 9 provinces over the next 12 months. This exercise was informed by the Women's Charter adopted in 1954, and that played significant role in setting the tone for today's democratic order. The charter was reviewed in 1994 under the Women's National Coalition, which adopted the Women's Charter for Effective Equality. Both the 1954 Honorable Chair and 1994 Women's Charters called for a society where women are free from discrimination and prejudice. They call for a society which respects women and enforces their rights and inherent women dignity. This is mainly the cause of this gathering today, to take stock as a province of progress made in implementing the 12 articles of the Women's Charter since the advent of freedom and democracy in our country, and assesses the impact thereof, evaluate the current women's rights regime in its entirety, and make concrete policy, legislative, and implementation of proposals to close gaps, accelerate positive areas of change, and introduce new interventions to gaps, accelerate positives also to the place of gender transformation program on a higher development path. It further affords us with an opportunity to assess the impact of the national gender machinery and all mechanisms aimed at fighting violence against women and girls as a scourge that is worsening in South Africa, which has manifested itself in ways we could not imagine in the past few months since the implementation of COVID-19 regulation. It is therefore, Chairperson, our ultimate desire to have the intensive consultation processes culminating in the adoption of an improved policy and legislative oversight mechanisms and interventions that aim at removing all structural, institutional, and cultural barriers to the realization of gender equality in South Africa. On the same breath, it is also our wish to assess how far has the sphere of government being accountable in implementing the policies, legislations, and proposal to close the gaps and accelerate positive change. Honorable Chairperson, as I conclude, it is thus imperative and necessary to indicate that within the context of 26 years of review of Women's Charter since 1994, we should also assess, amongst others, the number of women represented in decision-making positions in both the private and public sectors, and to further deliberate on interventions we can put in place to address remaining inequalities like gaps in remunerations between women and men, gender representation in senior management levels, as well as any other women's right. It is in our hands to ensure how best we can drive and take the lead in empowering women, elimination of discrimination against women through enactment of gender responsive legislation, and implementation of policies, programs, and projects. On that note, Honorable Chairperson, you are most welcome to Limpopo. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. You have really said a mouthful, and you have almost covered the whole background of what we actually, where we are coming from. So, since you have extensively spoke about the conceptualization of this idea of the review of the Women's Charter, I would not love to repeat what have already been said. But what I need to say is that exactly because of the background as you have outlined it, that is why as Parliament we have embarked on a process where we have a district-wide review and going specific to different districts in the provinces that we are visiting. Already we have concluded districts in the Western Cape, Northern Cape, as well as the Free State. Today we will be concluding the two last provinces of Limpopo, but we will also have a high-level session where we will engage with the Premier and his team of this province. And after that engagement, he will be able to give a clear program of action as to how the province is going to promote and to take forward the program around women's issues. After that, as Parliament, we will be able, throughout the sixth Parliament, to assess and to engage with provinces to make sure that we are able to see that there is really an improvement in service delivery, particularly as it is about women, but also that we will be able to assess the impact of our legislation and our policies on the lives of ordinary people, particularly women and children in the province of Limpopo. So I want to welcome everyone to this program, and I just want to set a few house rules for this engagement. All of us, when we are not addressing or we are not speaking, can we please mute our mics? That is the first one. And those of us that will be addressing, that will be asking questions, that will be engaging, you can use the language of your choice, because at least we have provided for the local languages of the province, as well as sign language for those from Deaf SA that will be our partner in that, so that all of us will be able to fruitfully and meaningfully engage. So that is the few house rules that we want to set down. And with that said, we are going to engage and go into our program, of which the first person that will be engaging us will be from States SA that have been with us in this program right from the start when we initiated this program. And we will now request Mr. Neil Roo of States SA to continue to do his presentation, particularly with regards to the two districts, Sekhukhune and is it Mopani, that we are in today. I don't know why Waterbuck. Oh, it's because in the week that passed we spoke a lot about Waterbuck. I'm sorry. Mopani and Sekhukhune districts, but you will give a reflection on the province of Limpopo. So over to you, Mr. Roo, and thank you very much and welcome to our program. As we progress, at least we are learning a lot, and the information that we are getting through this engagement is assisting a lot on the different platforms where some of us find ourselves. We can hear that when women engage, they are now speaking from a point of according to Stats SA, and then they will bring in meaningful discussion. So thank you very much for the role that you are playing in educating our people through this Women's Chapter review sessions. And over to you, Mr. Roo.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon, esteemed colleagues. Thank you very much, ma'am. I first just need to apologize for the issue. Unfortunately, I had another preset commitment for this afternoon, so he asked me to do the presentation. Like always, it's a great pleasure to be here to share this results with you for Limpopo and the two districts. I'd just like to ask, should I present or will it be done from Secretariat side?
You will present, Neil.
Okay, let me just set a presentation then. And so let me just share it quickly. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, so that must just be present and then share from this side. Okay, excellent. There you go. Again, thank you very, very much. As Lucas has said, we're talking about a poverty perspective, particularly for the two provinces, for Limpopo, at least in the two districts, Mopani and Sekhukhune. Now, again, as background, and most of you probably would notice by now, is that according to the mid-year estimate that was released earlier this year in July, South Africa had a population that's just shy of 60 million people, 59.6 million people. Of those, about 9.8%, or about 6 million people, lived in Limpopo province. So Limpopo province, makes out a significant percentage of the total population of South Africa. If one goes on and you look particularly at the distribution of the province's population, you see that 20%, about 1/5 of that population, fell in Sekhukhune, whilst another 1/5 of the population fell in Mopani. So the two districts represent about 40% of the total population. Again, looking at the age or sex distribution, you see that it's quite normal. It's about 47% males and 52% females. In fact, it's probably a bit higher than the average you get for South Africa, and this is largely due to probably out-migration of males. Although this presentation is not particularly about migration, I think it is important to note that Limpopo is one of the provinces with the highest out-migration. And although out-migration these days are very similar for males and females, it's still slightly higher for males. Looking at the districts and the sex distribution again, one see that Mopani is about 46% males, which shows you higher out-migration. And then also, I think the lowest here is Vembe, which is 46%. And then the highest is Waterberg, which we've spoken about in the past. It's normally, like I say, a good indication of out-migration. In terms of population distribution, of course, this is extremely important because all of us are doing all of this for the population, the people that live in areas. One sees that Limpopo, about 9% of the population, the total population, are over 65 years or 60 years of age. They're elderly people. Children, highest percentage of all the provinces are actually in Limpopo. About 39% of everybody are under 15. And then the youth and adult population is about 51%. And this is slightly lower than, for instance, other provinces, but it has a large part to do with the young population structure here, as you can see in the top bar. In terms of where those children live that we talked about, those 39% of the total population, we find that Limpopo is the third row from the bottom. We find that 47% of those children, almost 48% of them, lived only with the mother. 22% of them, more than almost a quarter of them, didn't live with either a father or a mother, while only about 27% lived with both. Now, this is not a normative statement, to say where they lived. I think the importance here is that where a child lives and where they and who looks after them whilst they're growing up is often a indication of the ability of the family to look after them. Whether they grow up with a grandmother only, whether they only grow up with a single parent mother. As you can see, very, very few of them, only 1.8% of them only lived with the father. So, of course, this is an extremely important slide, at least from my perspective. And I think, it will be good if everybody heeds this as a developmental slide. Employment's, of course, another thing that's extremely important. And if you have a look at Limpopo, there are about 3.8 million people in Limpopo that are of working age, between the ages of 15 and 64. Of those, about 1.4 million are employed. 0.4% are, according to the official unemployment rate, are unemployed. And then, of course, if you also add to that, the number that are not economically active, which is almost 2 million, of those, 0.6 million are discouraged work seekers. Now, it's people who either don't find a job, who are tired of looking at a job. So 1 million people here would be, according to the expanded definition, probably be considered as unemployed, which is extremely high. And we'll see later how people then survive. So having a look here, again, Limpopo is here. We see that the official unemployment rate is only about 23.6%. However, the expanded population unemployment rate is 44.4%, which is extremely high. It's much higher than South African average, for instance, although the official rate is slightly lower. I think also a very important fact to put this off. Now, if one looks at households, because individuals, of course, sometimes mostly reside in households, I see that in Limpopo, 52.5% of female-headed households that have a single employed household member. Now, that's more than half of all the female-headed households did not have a single person that was employed. That's compared to about 26.5% of male-headed households. So significantly higher. And of course, there's explanation to this, which we'll see later. And that's largely because many of these female-headed households are headed by older women who looks after children and who often also depends on various types of grants that are provided by government. By itself, I think a meaningful fact to take this off. Now, in terms again of who are not employed, that 1 million or 0.4 million people that we spoke about, I think the important thing that I often ask is, what about the youth? And there's where we refer to what we call need, not in employment, education, or training. And we see that in Limpopo, there's a slight difference between females and males. We say that about 900,000, that's 42.9% of the 2.2 million people, young people between the ages of 15 to 34, who are not in employment, education, or in training in Limpopo. That also explains to a large extent the migration that is implied by the earlier age structure. For people leaving the province to look for better opportunities elsewhere. Here we see again, I think, while we're talking of women specifically, this percentage was much larger for females than for males. So it's about 49.5% in the first quarter of 2020 for females compared to about 36.4% for males. If we go and we compare it between provinces, we see that Limpopo is probably in the middle of the pack. It's about 42.9% on average, and that is higher than the South African average, which is 41.7%, significantly higher in Western Cape and Gauteng, which fall below, but still lower than Northern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. This by itself, of course, is a figure by itself is already very bad. So the comparison, I think, is just to see where it fits into the broader pack. Now, when we talk about poverty, there are two ways to measure poverty. The one is money metric poverty. That's where we have a look at particularly income that households report. And then the other one is what we call multiple indicators, where we don't necessarily look at only or at income particularly, we look at other measures, access to services and so forth. The one that's often referred to is what we call a money metric. And according to that, about 57% of the Limpopo population is considered poor using the lower bound poverty line. The lower bound poverty line is the middle one there, which says that about each person earned about had 840 rands per person a month for the household to spend for various survival mechanisms. There are also other poverty lines, of course, the food poverty line, which is a slightly lower amount, 585 rands, and the upper bound. Generally, we refer to the middle one. If we have a look at this and we compare it to South Africa, we can see that in Limpopo province are much more disadvantaged. Whilst 57% according to the lower bound were considered poor, compared to only about 40% for South Africa as a whole. Of course, that figure is also largely driven by lower poverty relatively in Gauteng and Western Cape. Still, I think this is a very important statistic also to take notice of. In terms of gender, which is of course very important in our context, female-headed households were noticeably more likely to be poor than male counterparts. 59% of female-headed households, poor compared to 55%, or at least in the poverty shares. Now, this is a slide that we often, just to show the impact of education, we can see here that households with poor education or individuals with poor education are noticeably more likely to be poor than those with higher education. Whilst 13% of people with higher education were poor, the same, in terms of no schooling, about 2/3 of individuals were poor, and that stays the same basically until you've completed primary school. It only stops dropping once people have higher education. So again, education extremely important. Second measure that I spoke about, the multiple poverty index, which takes into account child fertility, education, living standards, and that's mostly access to various services, sanitation, water, and use of electricity and so forth, and also whether people are unemployed, shows that Limpopo is much more poor according to this particular index, for instance, the average for South Africa. And it has actually also seen a slight increase from 2011 to 2016. This, of course, refers to the census years, census 2011, and then also the community survey that was done in 2016 that we used to calculate these measures. In terms of the two districts that we're looking at specifically today, we see that even they are much higher, higher, noticeably higher than the average for the province, 13.6% and 13.1% respectively, and also higher, of course, than the other three districts that we have, Bembe, Waterberg, and Capricorn. These are just the indicators and the relative importance. We can see employment is the highest factor that influences this. So it doesn't really come as a surprise that multiple indicators are so high. Something that I mentioned earlier with the high unemployment, people could ask, how do people survive then? And if you have a look at Limpopo itself, you see that 43% of households in Limpopo received most of the income from salaries. However, I think what is particularly important here to notice is that grants, about 30% of households reported grants being the main source of income, 16% reported remittances being the main source of income. This, of course, the remittances again refers to high migration and people working elsewhere, and the grants, of course, probably refers very strongly to people being completely reliant on the state in a large extent, particularly elder person looking after children, if you put a picture together. In terms of services, I think you'll find that Limpopo generally have poorer service than South Africa as a whole. The bottom right corner here, when we look at access to improved sanitation, we see that Limpopo at 58.9% of households that have access to improved sanitation are still much lower than the average for South Africa. If we have a look at electricity, connectivity and electricity, we see that Limpopo is left-hand corner. It's actually improved and it's above the average for South Africa at about 97% of households. I think if we have a look at the districts itself, that's where the picture really becomes clear. And particularly, I think the one that jumps out is access to water. One sees that Mopani and Sekhukhune only about 77.3 and 68.1% of households have access to clean water. Then sanitation, and this is really bad, we find that 17.6% of households in Mopani and 10.8% of households in Sekhukhune had access to flush toilets or chemical toilets in those two districts, which of course, probably leads a lot to be desired and a lot of space to improve. In terms of vulnerable groups, of course, of which women is probably the most prominent group, we find that maybe particularly if we start looking at agriculture, we find that Limpopo is considerably, and it's been consistently over the years, in a province where one of the largest percentages of household participation in agriculture at 24.1% to only 13.8% in South Africa as a whole. Now, that's very important because it's probably one of the paradises in South Africa as a whole. Agriculture needs to be expanded even further, and particularly if also one has a look at hunger. And here we find that both in South Africa as a whole, but also in Limpopo, that female-led households have consistently been more likely to run out of money to buy food and therefore to suffer hunger. In Limpopo, it's 19.1% versus 17% for female versus male households. And then for the two districts that we're looking at, it's considerably higher, big per districts as well. And then also, if we have a look at households suffering from hunger, we find that Limpopo is at a very bottom, so the very smallest percentage. It doesn't make it less bad, but I think it is noticeable that because probably of agricultural activity, households in Limpopo were less likely to suffer hunger. And then I think one of the last slides that we have is in terms of being victims of assault, and we find that the average for South Africa is about 1.2% of women reported being victims of assault, and that is higher at least in Limpopo, which is only 0.8%. I must just warn if these figures are probably underestimates of the real situation, and other studies and anecdotal information should probably show slightly different results. And with that, I thank you very much, colleagues and ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roux. Thank you very much. I think it was really quite informative, and I think it can assist also others in terms of planning and making sure that the districts begin to respond to the challenges, particularly for women. We will now go over to Mr. Botha. He's the Commissioner Botha, the Commissioner for Gender Equality. Over to you, Mr. Botha, to just give us a reflection on the state of gender transformation in the two districts. Mr. Bota, Commissioner.
Deputy Chairperson, thank you so much. And the Speaker of the Legislature and mayors that are present, the councillors, Deputy Chairperson, thank you once again for your leadership. We think that we're of the view that this process is important, and as a Commission for Gender Equality, a Chapter 9 institution, we are privileged to again come back and share with you and your committee members about the state of gender-based violence in the province, or gender generally, Chairperson. I want to say, Deputy Chairperson, to start off by saying that the Premier yesterday hosted, together with his MECs, hosted a gender-based violence in Daba, and we thought that this, in fact, Chairperson, it's a clear affirmation that the Premier of the province takes this process seriously of ridding the province of GBV. Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP. I will not go back to what the CJE's mandate is all about, but as a Chapter 9 institution, we, Deputy Chairperson, we exist to create a society free of GBV, a society free of sexual harassment in the workplace, in both in the private and the public sector. But today, our main focus is on the two districts that we want to talk about. Deputy Chairperson, we would like to, as we've been asked to focus on Sekhukhune and Mopani, Chairperson, and focus on the gender mainstreaming in local government. In the Sekhukhune district, we did training on in the Elias Motwaledi, the Ephraim Mohale local municipality, and together with the district. Chairperson, we trained different municipal officials and council members, women caucus. We did training on gender mainstreaming, gender concepts, and we also did a lot of work on how to use what we call the Beijing Platform of Action to promote gender mainstreaming. Chairperson, we want to go to Sekhukhune district, the Fetahomo, towards local municipality. In the current financial year, we actually, as we monitor and do this training, we are convinced that especially the IDPs is in fact strengthened, Chairperson, and they do respond to issues of gender inequality in that district, and they also take into consideration the needs of both men and women, and there are the different concerns, experiences, Deputy Chairperson. But then I want also to focus on all the local councils that falls under Mopani district. Deputy Chairperson, what we did was we trained again relevant municipal officials and council members, and on different concepts, the SGDs, we also the Beijing Platform of Action, the CEDO, the gender budgeting, implementation, how do you then monitor all of those, Chairperson? We did this training. But let me move on and talk about the Greater Tzaneen local municipality. Our view is that, Chairperson, there's also that we selected it because we want to focus on strengthening their the IDP process, because we think that, Chairperson, if we strengthen the IDPs, it's then going to assist the council to ensure that issues of gender budgeting, but also issues of service delivery that focuses on women will be strengthened. So this is part of what we doing for the year 2020 and 2021, Chairperson. I want to move, Chairperson, to what are the challenges that relate to gender mainstreaming in both the districts, Chairperson. Deputy Chairperson, there is a lack of uniformity on the position of special programs. And I am happy that the Speaker of the Legislature had actually spoken to this issue where gender focal points, Chairperson, are actually not of a higher decision-making position, which therefore means it defeats the purpose, because you have a gender focal person, but with no decision-making powers, Deputy Chair, and this adversely adversely impact on service delivery, which is geared towards women, but also the positioning. This is one of the major challenge that we have come across, is that the position of the gender focal person is in fact not placed in a position that it's strategic, Chairperson. We have discovered that, or found in our monitoring work, in our training work, that the IDP processes, in most instances, they lack the gender analysis, and they've also proven to be gender neutral. Chairperson, as you meet with the Premier and the councillors and mayors, it's important for us to emphasize that gender can be neutral, meaning that we know that it is women who are at the cold face of inequalities, they are at the cold face of all the disparities, and it is them. And my colleague from the State SA has actually outlined how the burden of caring is actually disproportionately carried by women. So our view is that it's going to be important that in the IDPs, there is no neutrality. There is a specific deliberate focus on empowerment of women as the most vulnerable group, to use the term that was used by my colleague from State SA, Chairperson. We also are of the view that sexual harassment, Deputy Chairperson, their policies, they need to be popularized within municipalities, and we don't think that that is happening to a large, greater extent, Chairperson. And just to say that we also are of the view, Deputy Chairperson, that the gender mainstreaming, we think that it's important that it is aligned within the municipal manager. Why, Chairperson? Because our view is that if it is aligned in the municipal manager's office, it's going to ensure that there is administrative and service delivery programs which would actually inform their budgetary processes, Chairperson. So we think that these are direct challenges that we think that local government, both Mopani and Sekhukhune, should in fact give attention to. There's one, Chairperson, that I need to mention, that we in the Mopani, we've had to deal with the issue of women being denied land. We have a group of women, and we've attached that report to you. We've had a group of women who, in fact, had a land allocated to them, but suddenly this land was taken from them. And we view this as a serious indictment on empowerment of women, because, as I said earlier, if women are able to use the land, it means therefore that they will surely be able to make sure that their families are well looked after. Because again, Chairperson, in our work as a commission, we know that, and we've observed that it is women, Deputy Chair, who are at the cold face of poverty, and the Stats A has ably outlined the poverty levels in the province and in the district, in the 2 districts that we're looking at. And we thought that we should bring to our attention the issue of the land and the women who, out of their own initiative, had wanted to make sure that they stand up on their own and not depend on handouts, on government. And these were denied to them. And we think, Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, it's important for you and for us and the Premier and the province to assist us in ensuring that we don't only pay lip service when we say women's empowerment and giving land to women, but we actualize it. And one of the best ways is to make sure that these practices are dealt with, Deputy Chairperson. I think at this stage, I want to also talk about, and we have mentioned in our last presentation with you, Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, that we are faced with issues of maintenance that invariably impact on women. And some could argue, but what has that got to do with gender in the province? It has a lot to do with it, because when it is women who, in the majority, have to look after families, and when they are not able to access maintenance, it impacts on the livelihood of their children, Deputy Chairperson, but also issues of chieftaincy. All of them, they contribute towards ensuring or towards making sure that women's potential are not fully realized, Deputy Chairperson. I think at this stage, I will stop because we have given your able secretariat, and we must also thank how your office has been supportive to us and to the commission in ensuring that we are able to present and to give this documentation. So, Deputy Chair, you do have in your position with the committee to look at these challenges in more depth. And today, this afternoon, our aim was to highlight what these issues, Deputy Chairperson. I want to at this stage, I want to thank the Chairperson of the NCOP.
Can we please mute our mics? Can we really please mute our mics so that we are able to listen to the presentations, so that we can have meaningful engagement after the presentations? We thank you very much, Commissioner Botha, and also we have received your reports, and we could see that the presentation that you have prepared, we could see that there is generally work that is around the gender program that is ongoing. I think the information from Stats SA that show that Limpopo still, in terms of the total liberation of women, particularly our female cadre, are still experiencing a lot of challenges, and particularly as is usually visible in rural provinces, there is a tendency that female-headed households are those that are actually carrying the brunt of not only poverty, but also the carrying the brunt of the fact that they are confined to agriculture, and they are also, like you said, there is generally not they don't have the access to land as we would have really loved to see them, particularly since the primary activity for them economically is agriculture. I just wanted to make that observation, particularly since it came out very clear in your presentation, but also in the presentation by Statistics South Africa. As we continue, we deliberately chose the Commission on Gender Equality, Stats SA, as well as the Finance and Fiscal Commission, because we want our local authorities as well as our government generally to begin to think in a gender inclusive way, in planning as well as in budgeting, so that we begin to, like just this morning, the Minister of Okta, the Honorable Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, have said that we need to begin to think in any one rand that we spend, particularly at a local level, how much of that one rand is being directed to be spent on women and children. So if we speak about gender equity or gender equality, it is not only in terms of senior positions, but also in terms of how do our services, generally as government, reach women, and how is it equally distributed, equally spread between male and female. So without much further ado, let us go to Ms. Madubula from the Finance and Fiscal Commission. Over to you, Ms. Madubula.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether Kevin or Sibulelo has the presentation that side to roll it out. Hello? Kevin, do you have the presentation?
No. We didn't receive your presentation for today, so you can just go ahead and present. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, I will start with, my name is Norman Matubula. I'm a researcher at the Financial and Fiscal Commission. I'll just start with a brief overview of what is FFC about. It is an independent, permanent institution established in terms of the Constitution, and its mandate really is to make recommendations on the 3 spheres of government. Then in moving on to the FFC, it has done a study on gender budgeting. In light of the background, it was because the FFC was of the view that a greater emphasis should be placed on the intergovernmental relations system, which needs to be sensitive to the needs of women, so as to move them out of poverty. So the FFC did a study to assess gender responsiveness of municipal budgeting process. We focused on the IDPs of the municipalities. We chose 30 randomly. As we know that the IDP, it's a planning document and an implementer for municipalities, so as to check and monitor how are their programs going in terms of gender budgeting. Also, we also focus on 4 case studies of municipalities where the focus was on particular sectors like the local economic development sector, the ECD, the water and sanitation, as we know that these sectors are good indicators in terms of alleviating or easing the plight of women. So the next slide, in terms of the results of the study from the IDPs of those 30 random selected municipalities, where also the Limpopo province was part of those municipalities. What was found out in that study was that there was lack of gender mainstreaming and women empowerment approach on the IDPs of the municipalities. There is lack of gender disaggregated data. You find out there is data about women and female and male, but that data is only for population purposes. That data is not used to inform the municipalities that perhaps this is how we need to go about in terms of making sure there's gender balance. It's just used for population purpose. Also, in terms of equity, we found that it's more where some of the municipalities apply gender equity. You find that it's more about equity in terms of how many women are employed by municipalities, but there's no equality in terms of equal opportunities. So also other findings were that there was weak translation of gender equality commitments into fiscal commitments by the municipalities. There was also most of the programs that municipalities have, you find that it was gender events, like when there's Women's Day, or then you will see some of the activities that municipality do, but after that, there won't be anything. There was also poor institutionalization of gender responsive budget by the municipalities. Also, there was also absence of an approved gender policy across the municipalities that were assessed. In terms of personnel management, that is people who make decisions, and budget officers who track expenditure, we found that they have limited knowledge on gender mainstreaming. So the FFC, in that instances, as I've indicated earlier, that it made recommendations that the national and provincial government should run gender budgeting pilots in few municipalities first, and evaluate results before wider application can take place. These pilots should be linked to ensuring gender disaggregated data for key conditional grant as part of the grant framework in the division of revenue. Also, another recommendation that FFC made was that the national and provincial governments should ensure municipal integrated development plans institutionalize the gender planning by sector, mainly focusing on water, sanitation, local economic development, and include gender disaggregated performance indicators and targets. Also, the FFC recommended that the national and provincial government should provide guidelines for collecting sex disaggregated data for budgeting process, and ensure that municipalities have the capacity to analyze budgets from a gender perspective or lenses. At the time, government responded by saying that it supported the proposal, which will ensure that the collection and allocation of public resources is effectively carried out and contribute to advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. It will provide tools to assess the different needs and contribution of men, women, boys, and girls within the existing revenues, expenditure, and allocations, and will call for adjusted budget policies to benefit all groups. At the time when this recommendation was made, government response was that the Department of Women, Youth was engaging with National Treasury on budget and has indicators on gender responsive budget in its strategic plans. The other recommendation that FFC made was that in focusing on local government, was that the local government should institutionalize a gender responsive budgeting process linked to the IDPs, build capacity for gender mainstreaming and gender responsive budgeting at local level, ensure gender responsive appropriation and budget allocation, and ensure gender sensitive public participation and consultation takes place at local level. In that recommendation, government response was that gender responsive budget analysis, along with legislation and other practical policy measures, can address gender bias and discrimination. It is indeed a step towards increased accountability and public transparency, and it can shift economic policies leading to gains across society. However, the proposal's implementation may be hindered by capacity constraints at the municipal level. So at the time this recommendation was made, there was no record of any progress made. In coming to conclusion, the FFC is of the view that the Municipal Physical Powers and Functions Act of 2007, as well as the Municipal Finance Management Act of 2000 should also be reviewed or taken into account, so that they also have some prescripts in terms of gender sensitive and mainstreaming of budget for these two pieces of legislation, especially at the municipal level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Madhubula Amonde. We appreciate your input today. You was strictly to the point, but we do appreciate it. And we would now give over to the Honorable Bilamkulu, the chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, to preside over the second part of the program. I'm sure she have joined us because she was busy with the gender-based violence program just before, and she have now joined us, and so we will give over to her to deal with the second part of the program. Welcome, Honorable Bilamkulu, and the program is handed over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Lucas, the Deputy Chairperson of National Council of Provinces, the Speaker of Limpopo Provincial Legislature, the Statistics South Africa, Commission for Gender Equality, Financial and Fiscal Commissioner, Acting Executive Mayor of Sekhukhune District Municipality, the MMC of Mopani District Municipality Councillor Shimange, and everyone else, good afternoon. Inhlikani, Ndimasiari, Rialocha. Honorable Lucas, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Honorable Bilamkulu, if possible, can you open your video? Remember, we are broadcasting directly.
Okay.
For the sake of TV, if you can, open your video. The background is not working there, but it's fine. Continue.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will now call upon Councillor O.H. Mafefe, the Acting Executive Mayor of Sekhukhune District Municipality. She was going to brief us on the progress made implementation the 1994 Women's Charter for effective equality in the Sekhukhune District. She'll be focusing also on gender responsive budgeting and gender machinery. Over to you, Honorable Councillor O.H. Mafefe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bilamkulu, the chairperson of the session, and let me, the presence of the chairperson, Lucas, the Speaker of Limpopo Legislature, Honorable Mulapo, and also mayors, speakers, chief whips, and honorable councillors present here. The presentations that were given by our fellow South Africa, the Commissioner of Gender, Ntate Botha, and the issue of finance. I would like to say, as Sekhukhune municipality, we really do appreciate to be given this opportunity to be part and parcel of reviewing the Women Charter, more especially at this time whereby it's needed most. I will not go into introducing the item, as you have already, Chairperson, indicated what our role is in these discussions. Let me indicate that the district review session that I'm going to give here will take stock of the progress that was made or is made by the district in implementing the articles of Women Charter since the advent of freedom and democracy. And to be able to assess the impact thereof, we tend to evaluate the current women's rights regime in its entirety and make concrete policy, legislative and implementation proposals in order for us to be able to close the gaps. And also, we had to accelerate positive areas of change and introduce new intervention to place the gender transformation programs. We'll also cover the district gender machinery, as you already indicated, the legislative oversight, and all the mechanisms aimed at fighting, more especially in the situation whereby we are of COVID-19 and the violence that is so escalating against women and girls. and children, as it is worsening in our country. Chairperson, allow me to give a little bit of background as a situational analysis. The district has got 4 local municipalities, and in all these 5 municipalities, including the district, we are having 2 women mayors. And where the mayors are men, the speakers of council are women. So generally, there is a balancing effect in terms of the mayors and the speakers, as well as the chief whip. Also, there is an equitable structure when we zoom into the executives as well as the mayoral committees who were appointed during this term. Also, we acknowledge that while all councillors all councils have women representation, female councillors are generally fewer if we zoom deeper into the councils than the male counterparts. This is an anomaly that requires deliberate and concerted effort to rectify, Chairperson. And administratively, we're having 4 out of 5 municipal managers who are women. So, however, generally, there are fewer women in senior and middle management positions. And our country has made it a significant stride towards women empowerment, given the historical background of our country. Concerning the machinery in the district, the structure in the district is comprised of government and civil society structure. The functionality of the forum and the financial support is also there. And the community forums, we have women representation and also gender equity representation. We have structures such as Women Caucus, Youth Forum, HIV and AIDS Forum also are there in our municipality. Now, Chairperson, I'm going to go straight into the issue of the articles as per the review of Women Charter. Article number 1 on equality. We have some few principles on it. The first principle is the specific legislation in the municipality, which is introduced to ensure practical realization of equality. The achievements are that the Sekhukhune District Municipality adopted a gender policy in February 2018. But there are some challenges there, Chairperson, where there's lack of coordination between the role players. And there are some interventions that are being made into the local municipality also to encourage to draft and adopt their gender policies as well. The second principle is the appropriate institution and structure to ensure effective protection and promotion of equality of women. Here, Chairperson, we refer to Fitahom Tubas and Elias Mufaledi, which are the only 2 local municipalities functioning gender forums. And then with other municipalities to mean that the gender forums are not that much viable. And we've got the challenge, which is lack of coordination between the role players. And the intervention in this case is that the other 2 municipalities, which is Ifran Mogale and Makuta Mara, are also being encouraged to establish the forums so as we are able to deal with this issue of women. Under Article number 2, which is law and administration of justice, the first principle herein is the representation of women in traditional courts and community courts. The district achievement are that women form part of traditional councils and traditional courts, and also the community courts. In this case, we are saying there are no challenges, but there are some interventions that are needed so that the traditional council should be encouraged to increase women representation, because you only find that women are still very less than male counterparts in those institutions or representation. And then the second principle is rights of women to acquire land and property. Honorable Bilankulu, Chairperson, the Commissioner of Gender Equality was reflecting to this issue of land concerning Mopani district. And in our district, women, they really there is a challenge with regard to them acquiring land and property. So we are looking into that one as well. We are encouraging that at least women must be empowered in terms of land. The third principle is educational programs to address gender bias and stereotypes. For an achievement, we had an annual march that is led by men who work for the municipality to highlight gender-based violence. So this year we were not able to stage the march because of the restriction and compliance with the COVID-19. So our intervention will continue so that we have more programs and they escalate even to local municipalities. And then the fourth principle is access to affordable paralegal in assisting women. Here, there's no achievement, Chairperson, due to budget constraint. And then the intervention is just that if budget can be dealt with in favor of this issue of access to affordable paralegal in order to assist women. Under Article 3, which is the economy, the first principle is the elimination of gender stereotypes on the categorization of jobs on basis of sex and gender. Yeah, this one is partly achieved, Chairperson. The gender policy that was adopted by Sekhukhune District Municipality discourages discrimination against women on recruitment, promotion, and conditions of service. So the challenges is that in our local municipality, we still lack gender policies which are being implemented. The intervention will be that will put efforts for local municipality to draft and adopt gender policies. The second principle is about equal benefits provided, including in housing, pension, and medical aid. The achievement is that all officials of municipalities across Sekhukhune district receive equal contribution. So there we are having no challenges. The third principle is safe and healthy facilities provided for women. Here we are generally saying we did not achieve that much because we have no facilities that are existing. Fourth principle is economic policy, securing a central position and full participation. Here we achieved the procurement policies that favor women, which are already in place. And the intervention is that more and more women from disadvantaged areas must have less with Article number 4, which is education training, Chairperson. The first principle, women represented at all levels of policy making, management, and administration in education and training. With this one, we partly achieved, and the intervention is that institutions should employ more women in key positions. Second principle, advocacy program to heighten human rights education to develop awareness of women's status and enable them to claim constitutional and legal rights. On this area, we did not achieve Chairperson because there is lack of coordination. Therefore, the intervention will be that coordination and planning is needed in this regard. Third principle, girls and women in educational institutions are protected against sexual harassment and abuse. With this one also is partly achieved because we still have statistics that tells us that there is still sexual harassment and abuse in the educational institutions. In this area, there is a need of sponsorship and maybe creating more awareness so that this issue can be dealt with effectively. And more stakeholders should be encouraged to support.
Councillor, can you please unmute?
Everyone else, the stakeholders, they show interest in it. And we are encouraging society at large that should be part of awareness program in order for us to be able to address this one. Article number 5, Chairperson, development, infrastructure, and environment. The first principle here is development and infrastructure programs benefiting women with employment opportunities. This one is partly achieved that women play a role in provision of services as contractors. The challenge is that in rural areas, it doesn't appear to benefit more women because there is this imbalance in terms of provision of contractors for women. And then the efforts should be made to benefit cooperatives and businesses led by rural women. Second principle, adequate safe water and sanitation available in all communities. It's partly achieved. Water and sanitation backlog remains very high. And this is due to budgetary constraints. And the district municipality has a role to finish bulk water projects on time. Whereas we are having challenges in terms of contractors and sometimes the communities, they also protest and delay. And so that's the other issue that's giving us a huge problem. Principle 3, electricity and other energy generating sources extended to all communities as a matter of priority. This one is also partly achieved, Chairperson. Many villages have been electrified. We agree, but due to budgetary constraints, the offshoots that we experience, more especially during December time and January time, there are lots of offshoots and we are not able to cater for them that much because sometimes they are even informal settlements. So the local municipality should prioritize electrification of outstanding villages, which mostly are the offshoots. Principle 4, women have equal access to land, housing, recreational, educational, and welfare.
That you are wrapping up.
Okay. It's okay, Chairperson. With this one, I would say we have achieved and there is no discrimination in terms of equal access to housing and recreational facilities. Everybody else is taking part. I was supposed to switch over to Articles 6, 7, 8 and other articles according to the request in terms of the review of the charter, but because we have sent the presentation to you, Chairperson, I hope that it will reach each and every person who has interest in how Sekhukhune is dealing with these issues. There are still a lot of issues. Time is not enough. I'll just switch to challenges that are, which is one, insufficient budget, and then the victims being reluctant to open cases where there are cases that need to be opened, and then the issue of application for protection orders, which indeed seem to be not working that much, SAPS failing to serve and protect the suspects, the victims, and the late reporting of contravention of the protection order by the victim. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Marina, for the progress report. A hunda manjeni ya aka lava landzelaka. Ni lava ku ya ni ya vitana Councillor Shimange. Vona namuntlha i acting executive mayor wa Mopani. Councillor Shimange mikateko nkarhi I wa n'wina. Limpopo yi yingiserini na South Africa hinkwayo. A hi yeni vulavulani na rixaka inkomu.
Na mishaweta la avulavulaku is Councillor Matama Swangai, Chief Whip ya Mopani District. Manwa Magezi, Manitwa Muse. Manitwa.
Namitwa Manwa Mashalele, hambi voto isaka thomo antivi. Nkarhi I wa n'wina Mani Masanganyi, Manwa Mashalele. You can subscribe.
I'm going to speak on behalf of our district.
Man mata amile kutwaleni.
Greetings to our deputy chairperson of NCOP, and also greetings to our chairperson of Women Caucus, Comrade Kesani Kate Blankuru. In Mopani, what I'm going to present is simple. I will not dwell much on the introduction as our speaker has dwell much on that, but I will dwell much on the purpose. Before that, my item will as follows. Number 2 will be the purpose. Number 3, equality. Number 4 will be law and administration of justice. And in item number 5, I'll do with economy. Number 6, education and training. I'll talk about it. Number 7 will be development, infrastructure, and development. And number 8 will be social services, and then recommendation. And the last thing will be conclusion. This is number 2, the purpose. This is the overview of Mopani District response plan to improve socio-economic status of women in line with the progress implementation of the 1954 Women's Charter. Tracking progress from 1994, which was the beginning of new democratic dispensation in South Africa. District machinery. The following structure are established to drive and enable the functionality of the gender program in the district. Machinery in the district, we do have gender forum, women caucus, and men's forum. And their activities are captured in the IDP and SDBIP. For community forums, IDP rare forums, district HIV and AIDS council, disability forum, sports and recreational council, community service forum, youth council and older person forum, LED forum and district transport forum. For partnership, the district has partnered with relevant stakeholders to drive the gender enterprise in the district. Now I'll go to Article 1 as equality. There's 50-50 in Mopani. There is 50-50 in Mopani. Hence, we do have 6 councillors. Of the 6 councillors, 3 are males and 3 are females. I mean mayors. Item number 1, specific legislation in the municipal introduced ensure practical realization of equality. District achievement, draft gender policy is in place, challenges is 9. Intervention to track the implementation of policy. And again, we have employment equity policy and sexual harassment policy are in place. Challenges is none. Intervention, none. Number 2, article number 1, equality. Appropriate institutions and structures to ensure effective protection and promotion of equality of women. This is the principle. And district achievement, gender forum, men's forum, and women caucus are in place, which means we have achieved something. Challenges, none. Intervention is also none. In article number 2, law and administration of justice. I know we're not even used to this. The principle, number 1, representation of women in traditional courts and community courts. District achievement, women traditional leaders are participating in the traditional courts and are supported to address community conflicts. And we don't have any challenges, hence no intervention. Principle number 2, rights of women to acquire land and property. District achievement, women are part of the business community who are provided with land for business and residential purposes. And we don't have any challenges and hence no intervention. Educational program to address gender bias and stereotypes. District achievement, the gender mainstreaming training program was conducted during 2017 to date, and we don't have any challenges up so far. Principle number 4, access to affordability, paralegal in assisting women. There are government structures and partnership establishment to provide paralegal support to women, and we don't have any challenges. Article 3, which is economy. As you know, Mopani get everything there. Now, principle number 1, elimination of gender stereotypes on the categorization of jobs on basis of gender. District achievement, all advertised posts are strictly marked to encourage women and people with disability to apply. Hence, we don't have challenges and no intervention. Principle number 2, equality benefits provided, including the housing, pension, and medical aid. District achievement, women employees received equal benefits, including housing, pension, and medical aid in the municipalities. And principle number 3 in economy, safe and healthy or facilities provided for women. District achievement, safety keeping of sanitary dignity towels, bins in all female ablution. Hence, we don't have any challenges. Principle number 4, economy policies requiring a central position and full participation. District achievement, the institutional LED strategy is pro-women, whereas most of SMEs supported are women. Hence, we don't have challenges and no intervention. Now go to article number 4, which is education and training. In education, principle number 1, women representing management and administration, education and training. District achievement, women are part of the district and local council. West is led by women. These are also education and training programs meant to support women councillors, including women officials. Hence, we don't have any challenges, no intervention. Principle number 2, advocacy program to heighten human rights education to develop awareness of women's status and enable them to claim. We have achieved the Gender and Men's Forum, and Women Caucus has been established as part of SDP IP to raise awareness on the rights of women. Challenge is none and no intervention. And article number 4 in education and principle number 4, sex education provided for boys and girls at all levels of schooling. As a district, we have achieved that. These are the structure like youth council, children, both boys and girls. And we don't have any challenges. Now we go to article number 5. It's development, infrastructure, and environment. In principle number 1, development and infrastructure program benefiting women with employment opportunities. As a district, we do have cooperatives, SMEs, and EPWP programs coordinated by the district and are pro-women COVID-19 procurements were also biased to women, youth, and people with disability. Hence, we don't have any challenges. Principle number 2, adequate safe water and sanitation available in all communities. As a district, we have achieved Water Services Authority. The district provides basic services to all members of the community, including women. Hence, we don't have any challenges. Electricity and other energy generating sources, members of the community.
Honorable Councillor Maswanganyi.
Receive basic services.
Honorable Councillor Maswanganyi,
any
can
challenges?
you wrap up, please?
Sorry? Yes. In fact, I'll go straight to political and civic life. As principle number 1, women leadership and decision making at all levels government. As the district we have achieved, there are women NMC and chairperson of portfolio, including the women have equal access to representation in public bodies. Women participate in the governance structures in municipalities, that is MMC, and chairperson of portfolio committees. And principle number 3, traditional institution structures in accordance with principle of equality and democracy. The local house of traditional leaders, which include women, is established and functional. Hence, we don't have challenges and intervention. Now I'll go straight to article number 9, custom culture. Yes.
Your time is off.
No.
The
conclusion. This National Women Charter review session is expected to shed some light on how municipalities to review theirs for relevancy in the future. I thank you, a chairperson of Women Caucus.
Thank you very much. We now proceed with our program. I'll call upon my co-chair, Honorable Lucas. Now we'll be going to the interaction. I just want to tell the participants or whoever want to make some additions or questions that we can also use our mother tongue. There are interpreters here. We can speak in Sesotho, we can speak in our Venda language, we can speak also in our Shangaan. So whatever language you want to use, we can use it. There are interpreters. Thank you very much. Honorable Lucas, over to
Honorable
you.
Damkolo, I think I'm just co-chairing with you, so you can continue with the interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Is there some hands
Let them use
that
raise your hand.
needs to interact with the? Sibulelo, can you advise me if there are people who want to interact with this review?
Chairperson, Sani Ndlovu has raised a hand.
Sani Ndlovu, okay. Is it only one hand?
Only one hand, Chair, so far.
Thank you very much. Sani Ndlovu, nkariwa mwina.
Thanks very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. My name is Sani Ndlovu. I'm from Waterberg, I must indicate. I'm not from Sekhukhune, so I want to check with you, Speaker. Progressive women.
You may continue, Mama.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I've listened to the presentation, and I want to indicate that the issue of women, especially in Waterberg, I'm from Tabazimbi municipality side, whereby it's in a mining area. So the challenge here, you find women are not recognized as the presentation has been indicated, but it was only focusing on Sekhukhune and Mopani. But what we want to request is we need very serious intervention from the mines, whereby the mines has to recognize women. There are a lot of cooperatives that has been formed by our women on the ground, but there's nothing that has been the mine is assisting them with. So it's one of the things at the end of the day, they are demotivating women to form the cooperatives in their areas, and then the creator at the end of the day, a lot of unemployment in our municipalities. The other area speaker is the one of the issue assault, gender-based violence. Yes, currently you find that women are becoming the victim and they don't want to open the case. As I was listening now, the fortunate or unfortunate part of I was feeling the challenge whereby one of women just entered my house to come and complain because the men just assaulted her, and I was moving around to assist with that woman. But it's one of the challenges. If we can educate our women to say, if you are assaulted, please, it's our responsibility to open a case. It is not his business in myself a representative. It is only yourself who can decide to open a case. So I think the issue of education to our women is very much important, especially in our areas where we are staying. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Marina. I think all the issues that you have raised, you indicated that you are speaking on behalf of Waterberg women, but it involves or it cut across the country. Waterberg last week we were privileged. Today it is Mopani and Sekhukhune. But since we are in this province, I think we won't say we are not going to attend into it. I'm also happy because the Speaker of the Legislature is here with us. She did listen to whatever you were saying. Even our honorable mayors from different municipalities, I also believe that even our MECs around the province are listening to this. Therefore, we'll be able to make sure that we do something, but especially the issue of mines. Women are not undermined in mines only. I believe in all institutions. If not 99%, it's all institutions.
There is
I just want to check if there is another hand.
There are two people that left their hands, but unfortunately, through the identification, one is just a number of 938-105-10982. If you know it is you, the person can just make the input. And the second one is then also Lenovo Tab E7. So after the one that they've got a long number, the other one with Lenovo can speak. Unfortunately, ladies, we don't know who you are. You must identify yourself now.
My name is Sekhukhune Balentwana. I'm from Palabora. I just have a number of issues to comment on from the speakers that have just spoken. The first one, I want to comment on the speech of General Botha. When he was speaking about the focal person's powers and being limited in the municipalities, and when we come to the issues of gender-based violence, more especially because we're talking about women, I want to support that, because if we still continue to have this person holding a lower position without a voice, then this person becomes a little bit, I can't say useless, but then less effective, because they do not have, like they cannot, they do not have decision-making powers. So their position and their voices are not necessarily heard and louder. And then the other thing was me, I remember this other time, I think in one of the municipalities, I'm not sure if it happens all over, that you will have this person dealing with issues of women being a man in the municipality. So we find that we are represented by a man. I'm not necessarily saying that they are not capable of representing us, but then they are not women. They are not us. They are not, whatever it is that they will be doing or he'll be doing, it will be from a point of assumptions. But then if we can have women, I think it will be better, because this person will be speaking from the inside cycle, other than like it being a man. I just don't feel comfortable with it being a man representing women in the municipalities. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is the social needs for women. Yes, we're talking about issues of poverty. We're talking about equality. We're talking about education and same positions and salaries and whatever. But then the needs for a woman, there are not only that, there is this core thing that I believe that it's a very vital thing, that the social need. After a woman is being abused by a man or whoever, like being abused in society, we still need healing. I think a lot of you can relate with me. With what I'm about to say, that we go through this gender-based violence, and then we come back to society. There is not enough facilities or let me say, or places where you can go and relate this to find healing and find counseling. Oh yes, we do have social workers, but are we sure that they are doing the best they can do? Those who work closely with them, you'll agree with me that a lot of our social workers are overburdened, and the system itself is not that effective. Yes, they are trained, they have the degrees and all those, but then are they able to take the woman who has been hurt by either being raped or abused physically somehow to a point where they are totally healed? Remember, if we have women who are still hurt, they have to raise children, they have to take care of families. You have a woman who is raising hurt children because they are not yet healed. And I think even if you can say this person, you take this person, you give him a job, or you give her, take her to school. If the person is not yet healed, they may not end up being effective in whatever that they have to do. And then the other thing,
I think you have to wrap up now.
Okay, yeah. I have a lot to say, but then let me just stop there. Thank you.
But thank you, but you can imagine we want as many people as possible to speak. So if you can indulge with us, but also those of you that speak, can you please open your video for the sake of the broadcast, because we are directly on channel 408 on DSTV. The other one is Lenovo Top E7, Tab E7, a tablet. If you can speak, if you know, yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Desire.
Possible to open your video? Is it possible to open your video? If none, you can continue. Yes. Let us see you.
Yes, my video.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Desire Matala. I am from Ephraim Mogale local municipality under the district of Sekhukhune. I'm also the coordinator of the Young Women's Desk, which I believe currently we are the only municipality with a Young Women's Desk in the Sekhukhune municipality. I would also like to urge my acting mayor, Councillor Mafefe, that they also need to come to play in terms of establishing these young women's desks, because we've been running since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. But there was a time where Sekhukhune district established a task team for the Sekhukhune district young women's desk, but they only functioned, I think, for about a year. And after that, they only dealt with the issues of the 16 days of activism. But after that program, it seems as if there were no longer programs for them to run anymore. So hence she said that some of these reports are because there's no participation, even from the officials themselves. So I'm calling on the municipalities to make the resources available. And I'm not only talking monetary resources, I'm also talking about their availability and participation as well, to establish this young women desk and the forums. But also after establishing them, they also need to ensure that we are also capacitated and equipped in order to deal with these issues. That if, for example, our desk has to go visit schools to go talk about adolescents or violence to the schools, we also need to be in a position whereby we are capacitated. We know how to deal with these things in terms of workshops and all of that. We need to be empowered as well so that we can be able to assist. Another thing is the issue of the rape crisis amongst young people, young women. For example, there was a case that happened in our municipality where a young woman was raped, and a case was opened with the police station, I think, of Groblersdal. But earlier in the year, when I checked before the lockdown, when I made a follow-up to check how far the case is, I was disappointed when I was told that there is nothing that they can do. The only thing that is left for them is just to sit and wait and hope that the rapist rapes another young woman and he gets caught. All they did right now is to just have his sample, his DNA captured. So they need for him to commit another crime and get caught in order for him to be linked to the rape of that young girl. So I had a question to say, are these investigations only happening in TV dramas where police are going out to do investigations in terms of to find out? Because I gave them leads. I contacted a couple of people who were at the event where the young woman was raped, and none of them was contacted to be questioned in terms of have they seen or heard anything, because the young woman gave them a description. Now it is up to us. I've personally made it my mission to find this person, and I halfway there, halfway not there. So the police also need to come to play. And these young women desks and these forums, they also need to be integrated in all these institutions and departments and programs that are dealing with all these programs, so that it shouldn't be just the Ephraim Mogale Young Women's Desk that is dealing with this thing. We need the police to come in. We need the Office of Status of Women in the Premier's office to chip in as well. We also need programs such as Love Life to come in and assist. But in order for those things to happen, our leaders, both Councillor Mafefe and our chairperson of the session, we also need you guys to come in and assist us, because I believe you're the ones who have the tools, who knows all the doors to open, so that we can access everything that we need in order to help each other to move forward. Because it doesn't help if I'm helping another person, whereas at the same time, I'm also in a situation whereby I don't know what to do.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. From my side, I don't know about you, Honorable Vilankulu, but from my side, I see there is Sia Nkansi.
Thank you, Chairperson, for giving me an opportunity to talk. My name is Yabongam Kanse from Mopani District under Palabora Municipality. I'm just going to share a few solutions or what must we do to build a better society that we want. We need to build a patriarchally free society. By doing so, we must all work together in terms of becoming a society that believes women are capable. We must avoid being a society that doesn't believe which women can occupy executive positions in corporate world. How to build a sexual free working space. We need to make sure that sexual harassment policies are familiar to working places and our advocacy shouldn't be biased. Based on gender-based violence, our society has become an epicenter of gender-based violence, not particularly our province, but the country as a whole. Femicide cases rises day by day, which it has become a pandemic. And for us to end this pandemic, we need to work together. We have a role to play as a society on how to build a boy child. Also, through my assessment, I have picked up that usually most of the women who get through to experience abuse of women, abuse of gender-based violence, being abused, being hit by men, usually is women that depend on men. So as a society, we have a role to play on how to empower women with knowledge. We have a role to play on how to help a woman build themselves instead of depending on men. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Sia. There is someone in the chat room that is ABHR171. You may speak.
Yeah, go on.
Yes, it's possible to put on your video. If the video is on, it's fine as long as you are audible. You may speak.
You may speak now.
Yes,
Hello.
please. Speak. You may speak. Yes, please.
Okay, Chairperson Kira Matsetse Solomon, I'm from Ephraim Rale, City Forum. Kilebeletse we can say the mo nane gonle. Ntsheke boneng thata mo ke taba gore go tlhokega di-awareness campaign tse di tseneletseng ga go le mo magaeng dinaga magaeng tsa go tshwana le bona bo Ephraim Magale kwa gore basadi ba ba kgone go ba empowered ba kgone matlafa ba kgone go ba le boitshepo yo tseba gore ba ka kgona go dira ba le independent ka re ga o santsane go nna le letsogo la gore ba ba ka fase ga banna dilo tsa tshwana le tseo banong ntse be ke nyaka o ne e bontshe be ke nyaka o bontsha tabe ya gore go nyaka gore go tswa from government side nke go be le more intervention ya gore go iro di-campaign di-structure tse di leng gona tsa basadi di kry support from government gore di kgone gore di tsweletse di be empowered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can we have Mani Noria? Mani.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
If you can open your video. Mani. Thank you, Mani.
Manitra.
Continue.
Me ani la ku vulavula switsongo hi mhaka ya gender a xikarhi ka leti masipaleni. Challenge leyi ni yi vonaka hi nga na yona xo sungula i ku ti program leti ti welaku a masipaleni ti na challenge ya ku ti hava budget. Ti relaya ka ku kombela mali kusuka aka van'wanyani loro swi endla ku ti program to tala hambiloko swi karhi swi humelela swin'wana mi nga swi koti ku swi fikelela. Let's say for example mi lava ku endla ti-campaign ta ti-gender violence ku dyondzisa vanhu ti-awareness campaign mara hi ku mi hava budget mi hanya hi ku ya kombela mi kuma ku swibajeta leswi va mi nyika ku swona ka masipala I switsinini ngopfu. Let's say example they give you 100,000 for the whole year ku va mi endla ti-activity ta gender mi kuma leswaku a ku heteleleni a mi fikeleli. Xin'wanyana I ku ku na vutumbelelani va tumbeta ngopfu exikarhi ka ti-municipality loko mi lava ku ringeta ku lava ku lavisisa vuxokoxoko hi swilo leswi humelaka mi lava ku vona ku humelela yini matholele a timasipaleni swi endleni va nge mi nyiki vuxokoxoko bya kona hambiloko mo lava ku mi byi vona mi to kuma swi thayipiwini nyana swi nga helani. Se loko a ko va na swin'wana leswi va bohaka ku loko ku thoriwa va kota ku veka swi va rivaleni swi va clear ku mi kota ku swi tiva ku vavasati I vangani vavanuna I vangani ti-age hi ku ya hi ku hambana ka tona. And then yi nyikiwa na budget this gender desk ku at least yi va na budget ya yona aka budget ya masipala ku loko va kota ku fikelela ku endla ti-program ta vona hinkwato handle ka ku nga kumekangi budget ka ti-municipality dependa ka ku I ti-special program hi nge swi koti ku va hi fikelela leswi hi swi lavaka hi mhaka because we are special program and the special program swi vula ku a wu na mali u hanya hi ku kombela. Se a ni ta ku va hi hunguta leswaku gender yi kota ku humelela mahlweni yi fikelela swikongomelo swa yona a hi veni a ku endliwi a timasipaleni ku va na ti-budget ta swilo sweswo. Inkomu.
Thank you, Mani. Nakai.
Okay.
Nakai. Nakai.
Okay. Ni khense swinene ku nyikiwa nkarhi. My name is Matebula Constance. Ni le ka Disability Council a Greater Tzaneen Municipality. I feel like hina tanihi vanhu lava hanyaka na vutsoniwa a dictateriwa. At first ku tiwa na 2%, secondly ku ta na 7%. A hi nyikiwi chance ya ku ri hina as people living with disability hi lava yini. And that being said, loko nkarhi wu ri karhi wu famba a hi na full representative eka that 2%. And still sweswo swa ku jampiwile ku yiwa ka 7%. Ku tsandzeka ku fikeleriwa that 2%. It's not ku ri we are not capable ku va hi nga occupy the position, but I feel like we're being sidelined. Hi nga humeriserisa ku yini vuswikoti bya hina mahlweni loko hi nga nyikiwi an opportunity as disabled people. But at first va ku ri disabled people a va dyondzekangi hi kona hi tele ngopfu lava se already hi nga khoma ti-qualifications mara still loko hi apply a hi recognize-iwi. Even le ka masipala wa hina wa Greater Tzaneen lowu ni vulavulaka hi wona, if ever there's a woman loyi a nga disabled then ku nga va ku ri Mhlolo loyi a nga kona a ni n'wi tivi. A hi nyikiwi chance ya ku tiyimela and swi va swi hi endla ku ri yini swi va swi hi endla ku ri swi hi veka eka vulnerable position. Lava nga le ka ti-wheelchair va rheyipiwa a hi swi koti ku va hi nga tiyimela hi dependa eka vanhu van'wanyana. Loko u ku ri wa vulavula va ku byela ku ri ku na SASSA na yo yi na ti-requirements ta ku there's certain disability leyiwani yi nga ta ka yi nga holi a grant. And with that being said hi fanele hi yimela ti-learnership. Why hi nga nyikiwi an opportunity ya ku ya hi ya compete eka market ku vona ku ri indeed this person this person u capable or not. I'm not saying ku ri hi fanele hi endleriwa ti-favor simply because we are disabled, but I'm saying ku ri hi fanele hi recognize-iwa, hi fanele hi tekeriwa enhlokweni. We are very much capable just like any other person. Why hi nga nyikiwi the platform ya ku ti-prove ku ri with our disability we can still do it. It doesn't limit us to do anything ku va hi ri disabled. Ni kombela ku ri hi nyikiwa chance hi nga discriminate simply because we are disabled people. And that being said, hi nga va ri disabled but it doesn't mean ku ri we stink. Vanhu va hi nyaja, vanhu va hi tekela hansi a va lavi ku ti-associate na ti-disabled people. Hi vanhu hi na ti-feelings ene hi twa ku vava loko hi vona society ya hina yi nga hi tekeli enhlokweni yi nga hi lavi ku hi tshinelela as if ha nuha a hi nuhi hi vanhu hi kombela ku tekeriwa enhlokweni hi kombela ku nyikiwa ti-opportunity ta ku na hina hi kota ku compete in the market inkomu.
Thank you very much, Nakai. Teleni.
Thank you, Honorable, for the opportunity. I would like to mention some of the solutions for the inequality. Like back in days in around 2013, the Department of Trade and Industry had a program, girls. It was called the Techno Girls. That program was to empower girls in the world of business, teaching them that they can be capable, like to run business, have their own things, not to be dependent on men, and also to those young girls to the world summit to meet other female women in life. And also another thing is that we should also take our girls through sport, keep them busy, and educate them, like show them how they should like, for instance, hi dyondzisa vahina va ri ku ri munhu a nga fangi a ku khoma is way loko such a ku endla report it in that way vana va kula va kota vulavula ku this and that is bad because mostly vana tala va rape you and akaya a va kuli because munhu ta mu kombeta kwana ku if you report I'm going to kill you, and with that n'wana ntsana a nge vuli a ndzi make wa ye loko a hambisa a kota vona something wrong with the girl. So we must teach our young girls at an early stage to be able to speak up so that they don't affected by evil people like with the society we are living on right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Teleni. The last one will be Deli Machomane.
Yeah, Releboga Chairperson.
Please remember to switch on your video because we are broadcasting directly on TV on 408.
Yes, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Am I audible?
You are audible. We would love you also to be visible if you can put on your video.
Oh, am I not visible?
You are audible, but you are not visible.
Okay.
If you can put on the video, we will appreciate, but you can continue speaking.
Yeah, Releboga Chairperson.
Thank you.
Then we welcome this article. We also support it. Then my issue, key issue ya the gender-based violence. My name is Hlaole Mehlape, not Daily. I'm using her phone because of the network. I'm the chairperson of Women Caucus in Elias Motswaledi, the local municipality, Sekhukhune district municipality. So now my issue moke working with other departments like the Department of Justice, social services, because only the social workers, only the maintenance officers in the Department of Justice. As the municipalities, we have to work together with them because we are talking about the training of the communities. Yes, we are doing training as the ward councillors and as the councillors, the awareness campaign in terms of the gender-based violence. But we are working in silos, not working together with other departments. So, together, maybe we can fight this gender-based violence because the number of men who are killing women is on a daily basis increasing. So that's my main concern and my main point, Chairperson. We thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Councillor. There was Jeanette Mashego. I don't know, possibly you have got an issue with your connectivity. I don't know whether she still wants to speak. Jeanette Mashego.
My chair, I'm available now.
Yes, please, Jeanette, but we all.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Mommy.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, and in the interest of time, allow me to say all protocol observed. Yes, I'm Jeanette Mashihu, deployed by Progressive Movement in Limpopo. I'm going to talk to very few items, looking into the interest of time as well. And I would like to acknowledge the review of the Women's Charter, and we welcome it. And indeed, yes, we must acknowledge that so much has been done in the previous 25 years by our government, contributing to the betterment of lives of our women in the province, in the districts, as well as in the country. But that, Madam Chair, doesn't go without challenges, which is what we need to highlight as the gaps that we realize as the progressive movement. To say, looking at the issue of women empowerment, this is about women and economy. When you look at the district like Sekhukhune, where I'm coming from, for example, it is the district, dominated by mines, plus minus 42 operations in place. And we have all government sectors partaking in the district. But when you look at the opportunities that are actually available for women, they are very, very, very few or very scarce. Because when you look at the history where we come from, whereby the girl child was only allowed to have a minimal education to a point of being able to write a letter to her husband when it is in urban areas. Those were limitations which actually contributed to today's status, whereby all the private sector needs skills and competency for the people to be endorsed in there, which most of our women, dominant as they are in numbers, when you look at the statistics South Africa, they are in numbers, but they can't get opportunity because of the background. Hence, we are calling, Honorable Chair, to say, can we look into the issue of skills development to our women? When you look at most of the opportunities that come from our different, government sectors, even from the private sectors, mostly they've got age limit. When you look at the age limit, it means that most of the women which are still at a child rearing, age, and they are single parents, they lead their own families, they must see how to fend for their kids. They are left out. I think this needs to be looked into to say, how does the government close this gap? Because for the fact that one is overage, it doesn't dictate that one may die tomorrow or next year. Some of the people have got a very long lifespan, and it means they'll actually enjoy in poverty until the day of their last demise. So something needs to be done about that, Honorable Chair. And I wouldn't do justice if I may not talk about the gender-based violence. As Sekhukhune district, when you look at last year, this semester, and in 2019, we had about 239 cases. But this year, at this very point in time, we are sitting at 244. This, Honorable Chair, it means we are actually progressive in terms of these adverse events. We are therefore saying we need reinforcements of the statutes, because definitely we can't say we don't have statutes that are actually available to can cap the scourge of this gender-based violence. No, we do have, but we need to look into how we can actually enforce it to ensure that our law enforcement agencies do their best to ensure that the perpetrators actually are brought to book, to ensure that the victims are always safe. I'm saying this, Madam Chair, because in most cases you find that now the victims are removed from their homes into places of safety whereby the perpetrator is left comfortably to be at home. Now, we therefore say we're calling upon the re-looking into this to say, how can the perpetrator be removed earlier from home to leave the victims safer at home, to avoid more stress put onto the victims, which they already have enough out of the situation that they find themselves to be in. Madam Chair, I would also like to propose that we look into the parole laws. Hello?
As you begin to conclude, we want you to near a
Okay.
conclusion.
Yes, the parole laws, I think they need to be looked into because already the trend has told that people who come from jail out of parole, after spending so many years, when they come out, they actually repeat the offenses that they were jailed for initially, especially with murder and rape. We've got an example of the father who was actually jailed and is a legal somebody, a professional somebody, who went to jail because of murder. Coming out, only within 2 years, he murdered 4 of his children because he suspected that the woman is somehow having other relationships. But then the children had to suffer. When you look at such things, it says to the lawmakers, our government, to say, what is it that needs to be done to look into such issues? Because it's like, much as we are saying we are correcting the behavior and attitude in our correctional services, but there are some gaps that need to be looked into. Madam Chair, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeanette Masheho. There was I cannot remember the name now, but this person, I'm sure that she lost connection because she's not there now. Now, we will now do as follows. I will request, firstly, the panelists, if there is anything that they want to respond on, and then I will ask the Honorable Bilankulu, and then I will be the last one to make some comments and remarks. So to any one of the panelists that are still there, Neil, Ro, Namonde, or Commissioner Bota. If none, can I, in the meantime, ask Honorable Bilankulu if there is any issue that you want to respond to? Or one, also the speakers from the municipalities, the acting mayor and the speaker, if they can respond. Honorable Bilankulu, is there any issue that you want to comment on?
Deputy Chairperson.
Yes.
I don't think there is much that I want to speak to, but the issue here, I think the issue of GBV is a problem. And I believe it's not a challenge around our province, but throughout the country. But again, in our municipalities, I think there is budget. It's also a program because I had one speaker, Honorable Mtombeni, talking about the special programs that they don't have budget. When they want to go out and maybe make some campaign, they have to ask for money, meaning that the programs of women are not budgeted for. And therefore, we cannot say that we'll be able to achieve what we want to achieve at the end of the day, since we don't have money. Because whatever I want to do, the campaigns, if really want to make sure that we alert each and every one, but what is happening or the intervention that the people should take, we need to have some budget, and we don't have that. But I think if we can join hands, like other speakers said, that all of us all the departments, all the municipalities, that when we do have these programs, we make sure that there are some interaction. Maybe it can assist. But for now, Deputy Chair, there is a problem. And I think also Parliament will have some time where we visit the provinces and also to attend to the municipalities in order to know what they are doing there. Because they do have this like multi-party caucuses. They do have them, but we don't know exactly what they are doing. Maybe it can assist if we can also come from Parliament in order to make sure that we attend their meetings in order to assist. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus. I just want to, we really want to accommodate everyone. But can we please mute our mic? Sonika Mukwena, can you please mute there? So there is one person that I see on the platform is Lenny Malenzo, but I'm not going to take more than 3 hands. There is another person that has got a gadget with a long number. I can see you are raising your hand physically. You can speak after Lenny have spoken. Lenny? Lenny?
Javela.
Thank you.
Nage.
Let me see if you can continue.
Asanga gramu trade gore on disability ena masari abereka ngako eno ga cheka department cheka mukanga chona cheka government ka mukanga chona go na mele gore gona le masadi le gore o abereka disability to ka cheka home affairs health everywhere so na kwa ga nna ga ngaro ke na mara ga kare le rua this thing go bala la dra police of Ontario ba sonje ba hire basadi ba loro bana disability ka mo radio and the developer of Hana cover each and everyone in this world.
Thank you. We will now ask the person that have been raising his hand physically with 1 WTJ2 and many figures there. Please, you may speak. You may speak. Look at your gadget and you will see that you've got a lot of numbers and figures there. So, are you coming through? Are you coming through?
You must stay away.
Identify yourself and you can continue. Speak, please.
My name is Patient Bewe from.
Unmute your mic. Unmute. You are muted. You are muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Press microphone.
Good afternoon. It's Tsakani from Maruleng Municipality.
And the person that I identified, please speak.
Hello.
Speak, please.
Yes, Tsakani here from Maruleng Municipality in Mopani. I just want to highlight the issue of and appreciate the issue of us having the social workers within our municipalities. But unfortunately, you find that we're still running short of psychologists. We will appreciate if you might find that within the municipalities, at least, We have 2 psychologists located within the social workers' offices as they are offering special offices. Yes, because you find that they are having their own expertise. And currently, you will find that we only have 1 psychologist coming to the hospitals, not on a daily basis, but on a regular basis sometimes. So we'll appreciate if government can prioritize increasing the number of psychologists within the hospitals, or they can be based where the social workers are. That would be really appreciated. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Kakane. Lesia Koza, you were the person that raised your hands. I don't know, is there a problem with your connectivity? But we will give you the opportunity to speak. It seems as if there is a problem with your connectivity. So we will continue, and we will request that if there is any questions that the presenters felt that they can respond to, we will appreciate that. Mr. Ru?
I don't think there's any inputs, ma'am.
Okay. No Monde?
No, ma'am. No,
Thank
no
you.
comment.
Councillor Mafefe? Councillor Mafefe?
Oh, simple.
Hey, can you please mute Councillor Mafefe?
Chairperson, no comment from my side.
And the councillor from the other
No comments, Deputy Chairperson. No comment.
Thank you very much. I think the other issue that came up very strongly that I want to speak on is the issue of coordination of the programs. We have been following the government also in terms of the programs, and one of the issues that they are strongly promoting currently now is the issue of the district development model. And in this district development model, that is what government is saying to us as parliament. They want to create a platform where all government departments will be able to work on a coordinated basis, where programs can be coordinated, where we can make sure that services are delivered in an integrated manner. So I think we are following this district development model. In Limpopo, already in Waterberg, they are piloting the program. Through our oversight, we'll be able to give feedback to our communities to make sure that this will assist us to make sure that there is integrated services. With regards to other issues, like issues of the psychologists and the social workers, shelters, and that is the issues that we as Parliament will take from you to interact with government to make sure that in the provinces and nationally we interact with government to say women have raised the issue of shelters, that there is a lack of shelters, there is a lack of psychosocial services, there is a need for economic empowerment, to make sure there is a need to make sure that women have access to land. That is the kind of issues that we want women to raise with us as Parliament so that we can take it up with government. So I think there are many issues that you have raised that we will take up, and next week, Friday, we will be meeting with the Premier's office and all the Executive Committee of Limpopo, and we will report to them, and they will give us at a high level a report as to how they are going to deal with issues that have been raised in the 2 events that we had with the districts of Limpopo, and we will be able to monitor together with the provincial legislature and to do oversight over that program of action coming from your Premier at that level, so that we make sure that the women of Limpopo, at least as where it is concerning service delivery issues. We will make sure that we do oversight and we make sure that we actually request and we urge government to respond to the issues that have been raised by the women. Having said that, I really also want to conclude by expressing our appreciation and our gratitude, firstly, to all the women from the different community organizations, progressive women's movement. All of you, we want to appreciate the fact that you participated in this event. Also the councillors, and then also to the presenters, to the members of legislature, to the members of parliament. We have got members from the National Assembly, Comrade Dipuo Peters, Honorable Dipuo Peters, Honorable Jane Manganye, and others that if we haven't notified you, Honorable Ndongeni from the NCOP, we have noticed that you have logged on. We want to express our appreciation for your presence. In the next events in the other provinces, we will want you to be part and parcel of the program. Also to the chairperson of the Multi-Party Women's Caucus, Honorable Kate Bilankulu, thank you very much for your support and for your participation in this program today. We want to thank Mr. Roo. He's been an integral part of this program from the SSA together with the Statistician General, Mr. Maluleke. Also the Finance and Fiscal Commission. We've been having them right from the start. Nomonde is representing them here today. The CGE is represented by the Commissioner Bota. We want to thank all of you, and we want to ensure the participants in this program, the issues that you have raised here, we are taking them to your provincial government, and we are also will be addressing it at a national level. And with all of it said and done, we want to thank all of you. And with that, we will now adjourn the session. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Lovely. Thank you.
Limpopo, you were wonderful. We love you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Particularly also the previous officer for the role that they played. We want to thank them very much. They played a very, very progressive and positive role in making sure that we have this engagement. Thank you very much. Also to the legislature.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson.
You can see the Limpopo is
It was very good. It was very good to watch.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
Before you go to Sepira, what's it? Oh, same kind of